Hey everyone, and welcome to the Hair Healer Podcast. I'm the host, Colleen Dixon, aka the Hair Healer. On my show, I interview clients, hairstylists, healers, friends, family, people in the beauty industry, and sometimes just a person with a story. We discuss their lives, healing journeys, astrology, inner child healing, spirituality, trauma, hopes, dreams, and everything in between. All questions are channeled to me in the moment while doing the interview. My hopes is to give a raw and uncensored view into someone's world and soul in hopes to raise the consciousness of the planet and bring connection back into the world. Now join me and let's go exchange some energies. Hey loves, 3 episodes left after the season of the first season of the Hair Healer Podcast. How did this happen already? I cannot believe it. It's been a year I've been working on it. I did not predict a pandemic. I did not predict the pandemic to change the course of my life in many different ways. And also the way the Hair Healer Podcast started. Originally, it was just my clients and about their lives at the salon. And then the quarantine opened up to everyone. And now I have a whole new flow for season 2 coming. So again, enjoy it. We only got 3 episodes left. Pay attention to my Instagram at the Hair Healer 1111 and Facebook Colleen Dixon, because I will have a giveaway, a contest giveaway I'll be announcing at the end of the week. You guys, it's an awesome, awesome gift I'm ready to give away to everyone. And it's actually really easy to get it to enter into the contest. So again, pay attention to that Instagram at the Hair Healer 1111. I hope everyone is doing well. Speaking about changing the course of your life, if you haven't already seen on my social media, I have made the official decision to not go back to the salon, Capriati salon, or any salon whatsoever. It's like, what? Yes, again, many things have changed in my life over this quarantine, and that was one of them. I really got to take a hard look at what I was passionate about. And what I really wanted to see in the direction of where I was going with the podcast, with the healing, with the astrology, with the hair, with all of it and how to combine. Because if I'm honest with you, my passion was never to be like win hair contests or to be this or be on behind the chair or some great thing. That wasn't. My passion was with the people, with the healing, with the connection I had with them, probably more than anything. And I really, really got to understand that. And it was hard for me to make this decision. And I kept wondering, well, I could go back and have my guaranteed money and guaranteed everything, but I won't be able to work on my dreams. Or, I'm already used to not working for the next, I've been working like crazy, but not working that way for the next 3 months. And the universe has provided and it will continue to provide. And I figured, why not? I have nothing left to lose. I'm 32. I have great support with my kids. I don't have a lot of debt, just a few shopping credit cards, and I don't own my home. So I might as well take this chance to jump into entrepreneurship. So the goal is, for those of you wondering, me as a hairstylist, I have started doing hair on the side, and I've always done hair on the side, and I've been wondering, okay, well, how can I take this moving into COVID future, and where do I see this? And I think a lot of people got comfortable getting used to doing things in the hair. And I'm like, well, I really want to bring in the healing with it. Okay. And that's where the astrology soul coaching is going to come in the fall. That's where I have so many things lined up. I don't even want to get into it. I've talked a little bit about it, but again, I'm just going to go for it. I'm really, really excited. And again, I kept thinking one of my defects / assets is I like to avoid the situation. I felt like I have a hard time doing something for me if I feel like if I'm letting someone down. I know it doesn't make sense, but if someone supports you or blah, 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 and you want to do something that you know is right for them, but isn't going to right for you, but isn't going to be right for them, I struggle with that. So I was like, holy crap, I'm going to let a lot of people down. My boss, I didn't really let him down, but I again avoided the situation. I was scared. I just wasn't sure. I kept thinking, oh my God, do I really have to make this choice? The longer it kept going, I was like, wow, should I really just do it? And I just prayed and prayed. And I drove back to my hometown of Pittsburgh this weekend. And on the way out there, I was on the turnpike. I did a video, if you saw it, about the summer solstice, rebuilding your life. We spent the last 6 months destroyed, everything getting torn down and destroyed. What do you want the next 6 months to look like? I went in to pee, came back out. My boss called me and was like, oh yeah, we're open next week. I was like, holy shit. I was not prepared to make this decision right now, but I guess I'm going to. And I prayed. I went out and talked to my old boss, Jimmy. I did a episode with him for season 2. And I just said, I got to do it. I can't go back. I can't go back. I just knew I had to do it. And I made the decision. I jumped into faith, and not into fear, which is pretty cool. But it is scary. And today I'm recording this at 12:31 a.m., officially 6/23/2020. We're in cancer season, so I'm surprised I'm not crying yet. And I'm like, how did I do this already today? I've been doing the entrepreneurship, but really, oh my God, I can't believe, did I really just say that, announce to the world that I'm never going back and I'm building this whole business? Oh my God, yeah, I did. You know what? It's a journey. I'm excited about it. All of you are going to be with me every step of the way of it, with your support and listening, and I'm excited. And you're going to be there to watch the fails and the goods and the bads, the trials, the tribulations, and the major successes that I know that this is about to be. Again, I have a lot of plans, so stay tuned. I'm super excited. Let me talk about this episode. This episode is someone from Westchester, getting back into Westchester, but still part of the quarantine episode. Is from a few weeks ago when we weren't allowed really out to see people. And I met them through Nikki. I can't even remember what episode that was. And they used to work together. And Nikki had said, you know what, you need to get this person on your podcast. They are fascinating. They have a fascinating life. They are an astrologer, tarot reader. I said, oh, and in Westchester, let's do it. So let me introduce you to Brady. Their pronouns are they and them, and we will get into that. Especially, I'm really excited about we discussed gender identity theory, the language of gender, the spectrum of gender, everything that you've ever wondered about gender and identity and wasn't sure about, Brady answered for us and talked about their own journey through gender themselves. And also, we talk astrology, Saturn returns, tarot reading, so many cool things. This episode is amazing. Something that they said that I want to leave this with, and it's the middle of the episode, I don't know, I think 40 minutes in. They said, reaching for the expression that feels right when they were talking about their gender. And I was thinking to myself how that tied into my own life in general. Like when I went back to listen to the episode, you always hear what you're supposed to and need to hear. And I said, holy shit, I needed to hear that in this moment too, because I'm reaching for the expression that feels right in me. I'm reaching for where I want to go to in life, how I'm going to see things. And it can be scary to go inside, look at your true self and say, what makes me happy? What's going to make me happy in spite of what the world thinks or people think or whatever it is. So, and that can go across any spectrum. Again, I'm super happy that Brady shared their experience and so many more things on this episode. And I love you all. Thank you for being with this journey. Sorry if I rambled. Again, I'm tired. Bear with me. The next couple weeks are going to be crazy. I hit the ground running today, and I guess I'll sleep in a couple weeks. Anyway, I love you all. Remember, please rate, review, subscribe, send this to someone who might need it or to brighten up their day. If you have any questions or you want to come onto the Hair Healer podcast, you have a great story, please email me, thehairhealerpodcast@yahoo.com. Don't forget to follow at thehairhealer1111. Here we go. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hair Healer podcast. It's Monday night, and I'm just getting home after a crazy busy day, but I knew my next guest who I have here on Zoom already. As much as I know about them, there's someone newer. Normally I have people I know. Their energy just very much, already I could tell was going to calm me. I'm like, so let's go into this interview. It's going to be good. So I'm actually, as most of you know, I'm here in Westchester in the area, and this is Brady. And Brady is also in Westchester, but we are not together. We are totally separate, which is kind of cool. And I met Brady through a friend. And so let's just jump right in it. How are things over? Are you in the town? Are you in the borough?
Yeah, I'm I'm on Darlington. I'm in the middle of town. I can see Market and Gay out my window.
Wow. How was today? Was it intense? Is there anything going on in town with all the riots and everything, or no?
Yeah, there was a little bit of protesting down at the old courthouse, but it's pretty tame. It's Westchester,
I know.
It's just people with signs.
Are you from Westchester?
No, I've always been in Delco. But yeah, I've just really been attached to Westchester. I think since finding the Prana House, actually, probably was the first time that I like spent any serious time and energy in this area.
Really?
Yeah.
So let's talk the Prana House. So the Prana House, I found it when it opened. How long has it been open now? Maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, pushing 5 years.
Yeah, and I was walking through Westchester, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's wait, what is that?" There was like a cool store finally. Like there's like selling crystals here in Westchester, and I went in, and Jack is the owner. Who I was thinking after you, I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I should get her on here too." I remember chatting with her, and she just had like such good energy, and I was just happy to see something like that in this area because I hadn't yet. And so, what drew you there? So you are an astrologer and a tarot reader, correct?
Yes, I am.
And as you know, I'm an aspiring astrologer. So let me hear your story, your journey.
Yeah. So, I mean, my journey is really multifaceted. So I'm going to try to tell the parts that like tie in Prana and Westchester specifically. Yeah. I grew up in the church. And so grew up in a pretty like closeted
Which church.
I went to a little
evangelical,
like a little non-denominational evangelical church in Delco in Springfield.
So strict.
And pretty strict. I went to Christian school, was like wearing a uniform. It was like, I had a very closeted childhood experience, which I broke out of pretty extremely by like 17 or 18. And part of that was like witchcraft and trying to like diving into this thing that felt so opposite to the way I was raised. And it was in that journey that I like started reading more books and finding people online, and ended up coming to this little like holistic weekend pop-up event at Sprout Music Collective. And that's where I discovered the Prana House and met Jackie. Jackie was there vending, and we had a whole really long conversation, and she told me about her shop. And I was just like immensely interested in a place that had all of these resources and someone who was like willing to sit there and talk to me about things.
Yeah.
Instead of like a stuffy voice in a book that felt like it really wasn't speaking to me directly. So Prana was a big part of my journey just in general, but specifically
so did you just
with
start
tarot.
Going there after you met her? Were you like, oh, I want to do tarot readings? Or
yeah, I think it was probably about 2 years that I was just there as like a customer and coming to events and learning, and probably about 2 years in of me like having bought a tarot deck and like doing readings for my friends, I was, I guess, at a point where I felt ready to start reading for other people that I didn't know. And so went to Jackie, and Jackie gave me that first opportunity where like the first tarot reading that I ever gave that wasn't for a friend was in that shop.
So how was that? How was do you remember how that felt? The first like non-friend reading?
Yeah, it was terrifying. But it was also really good. Like I remember the end of that day being both exhausted because I knew nothing about like boundaries or energetic self-care or like anything. But I was also like thrilled out of my mind that I had gotten to talk to people and share this thing that I love so much and like offer them context and clarity. And it was really fun.
Oh, so how often, so then did you jump right into it doing them all the time? Like how often does your energy allow you to kind of connect like that? What do you do with it?
It ebbs and flows. When I first started, I still had a full-time job. So like
Doing
that
what?
was, I worked at Barnes & Noble. I was a manager at the Barnes & Noble in Broomall. Yeah.
You like it?
There were parts of it that I liked. I love books. Yeah. I always have. And so I liked being surrounded by books and getting to help people find good things to read, and also like having a discount on tarot decks and magic books, because that was sick.
Was it a good discount?
It was a very good discount. Yeah.
Okay,
so
okay.
A large part of my library was built up during that time.
Wow.
But yeah, I think I probably started pretty sparsely. Like I would just read for other people like once or twice a month because that was all I had time for.
Yeah.
And once I moved into this as a more like as my main thing, and now anything else is a side gig really. I I mean, I feel like I have the potential that I could read for someone every day if they would schedule with me.
If they
But yeah, I think mostly, day to day is different. There are some days where I am just not energetically up for it, and there are other days where I am, and that's part of this. I think is like learning how to feel your own energy and knowing the things that can support you and bolster you up, and allow you to move through those things that might feel a little bit more draining.
Isn't that true? And sometimes I know for me, for as like a creative, as channeling stuff, it can be hard when I'm off, when like my body is like, no, Colleen, like relax. You don't have to always like channel this or astrology, or sometimes you're just not getting something through. And like, it can be hard just to like be silent and be like, no, Colleen, sometimes it doesn't need to be channeled. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's such a narrative, I think, around both tarot and astrology in our culture that it's this performance that like the client comes to observe somebody telling them about their own life. And there are people who practice that way, and like good for them. But that is not the way that I practice.
That's an interesting perspective. Now that you kind of said that, you know what I mean? I can totally see that. In what way do you practice?
I think that it's really more of counseling than anything else. Like it's a very collaborative experience. And that is something I can't claim that's my idea. Like, it's from getting readings from other astrologers and tarot readers and spending time like learning what is the best way to support somebody. But it should be a conversation. Every reading, whether it's tarot or astrology or anything else, it should be a conversation.
I love that. I agree with that. And again, what you're saying is like, so kind of like a Vegas, like some people think, oh, like you're coming in to see me, like it's my Vegas tarot astrology show, versus like just two people being humble, engaging in energy, and totally get that. And for you, those listening, that is absolutely true. Now, what got you into astrology? I'd love to hear this since, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I think I probably found astrology the way that most people do, which is like you vaguely know about it and you read your horoscope for a while. And then at some point it clicks that there's more than just like a horoscope in a newspaper. And so I got into astrology, like trying to understand my own chart. And in the midst of this big, like self-discovery journey that I was basically on, kind of emerging from my childhood and trying to become both an adult and like an autonomous person with agency that could make my own decisions. And so astrology was part of that because it gave me a way to see myself objectively instead of through the filters that I had been given. And that's a big part for me, that like astrology really lets us see ourselves outside of the contexts that we kind of already understand. Because you might see yourself as a lazy person and then internalize like a cultural or a familial narrative that's like, oh, well, laziness is this inherently bad thing. But if you look at your chart, you might see that you have a ton of Taurus placements, and it isn't actually laziness, it's the knowledge of how to rest, and that you just know how to take care of your body inherently. And so you slow down and you do less things. That's not laziness, that's body intelligence. So like that's where I feel like astrology takes us out of like the narrative that might have been given to us about who we are, and it lets us reframe that narrative.
That was amazingly put. I'm sitting here like, holy shit, thank God I have this on recording, and so many other people, because that's like an amazing way to put that. Oh my gosh. Now, do you read, as I'm about to start my second year with Nightlight Astrology, and now I'm like obsessed with my chart. Okay. Like super obsessed with it. But he was saying he hasn't really looked in his personal chart in a couple of years now, because like, do you look at your own chart now? Are you still with me obsessed, or are you still like, okay, now I know my chart enough. I don't even want to see what's transiting in there, any of that?
I mean, I think it comes and goes. Sometimes there have definitely been moments in the past. I think I've been studying astrology in some point for the past like 4 or 5 years, like to some degree I've been studying it.
Yeah.
And it has come and gone how much I'm focusing on my chart versus how much I'm focusing on like theory.
Interesting.
Right now, I'm in this place where even with theory, I'm trying to go back to the basics. And so that has actually brought me back to my chart because that was my introduction. My basics were how I understood my own chart. And so I'm trying to come back to that and maybe even like challenge and question some of the things that like I read when I was 18 or 19 and thought like, oh yeah, that's exactly who I am. Okay, I'll just accept that. And then like at this point, with a bunch of years of practicing under my belt and doing readings for other people, it's really nice to kind of come back and challenge those beliefs even that I have about myself within astrology.
What do you think in your own personal chart, if you don't mind saying, what do you think your hardest aspect in that chart?
There's two. And they're both like they're lovely, and then they're also really challenging. So I have a Venus and Pluto conjunction, and it's exact, like almost same degree. They're within technically it's 3 and 4, but they're within a degree of each other. And that one's pretty intense, pretty tough sometimes. I feel like it's tough in the moment, and then when I get to look back at that experience, it's actually awesome.
Yeah.
But in the moments, that often feels like being torn apart, which is what you need sometimes, right? Like sometimes you need to have parts of yourself ripped off because you can't do it yourself. So I've seen that as separate. Oh yeah, definitely. But then the other one, I have this big, slightly off T-square between Saturn, Mars, and my sun. And it's not perfect because Saturn is at 0 Aries and Mars is at the end of Virgo and my sun is at the end of Sag. So like it's not a perfect T-square the way that T-squares should work out.
Yeah.
But it's there and it's within degrees and I feel it. And it's very much this like push and pull between the part of me that wants to do a ton of things and the part of me that is this very like hesitant, self-protective. Like there's these two awarenesses or these two perspectives that are sort of always at war inside. And it's like, well, which one am I going to lean to today? Which one am I going to allow more control?
Which one? Now, how old are you? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm 23.
So have you given into any thought about like what your Saturn return is going to look like?
Tons. Tons. Because it's wild. It's a wild return. I mean, you read about Saturn returns, I think, pretty early in your astrology journey, just because everyone likes to talk about them. So I definitely had a moment of like severe panic the first time I looked at my Saturn return chart, because it's wild. Neptune will also, I have Saturn at 0 Aries, like the Aries point, the start of the zodiac.
I have Saturn at 0 Cap. Yeah, you have it at the start. I have
nice.
0
okay,
Cap.
so you're at Cap. Cool. So ours are perfectly square then. That's really interesting.
How funny is that?
That's really interesting. Whoa. Okay. I'm going to sit with that for a moment. But yeah, so 0 Aries, when Saturn gets back there, Neptune will also be at 0 degrees Aries. So I won't just be having a Saturn return, but there will also be a Saturn and Neptune conjunction in the sky and Neptune on my natal Saturn.
Wow.
And now then beyond...
What house is your Saturn in?
There's more. It's in my 10th.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So I'm like, you can understand why the first time I looked at that with not a ton of experience that I was like panicking.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But, because there's more, like my South Node is also right up there next to Saturn. And when you look at the chart, it will be a triple hit. So Saturn will reach my natal Saturn, reach my South Node, and then retrograde, head all the way back into Pisces before it goes forward for the like third time and actually passes my Saturn and my South Node for good. So it's going to be this like, I'm very aware that whenever I'm in that moment, it's going to feel like a lot of disruption and like disillusion and this very like fluid time. I'm prepared for that, but I'm not necessarily scared of it anymore. I think I'm really excited for it to be like, well, let's just shed. Like, let's shed a bunch of layers.
I'm coming out of my Saturn return and I'll be 32 and mine really hit at like definitely 3 months after I turned 29. And it just like, it was a very long, I'm getting divorced now as part of my marriage. And the minute I met him, and it was so crazy, I knew. And when we started talking, it was actually in a sweat lodge on the great eclipse in 2018. And I was like, this MFer is my Saturn return, baby, part of it. And I knew, and it was just like such like, I can tell you though, from experience, it was so painful and so crazy. It was like, and I have my Saturn in my 5th house. So like, marriage, pleasure, all that's, it was just like, not marriage, but pleasure, like my childhood visions of marriage. But, and all this, it's not my interview, it's your interview. But now what I say, it's just now like what is cool, kind of what you said is the pain was worth it. I'm on the other side. I feel like my whole soul and body, I feel like a brand new person.
Definitely. And it's been really funny I think for the past about 6 months or so, maybe even a little bit longer than that, people in the middle of their Saturn returns have been coming for readings. I can't tell you how many readings I've done that were basically just a Saturn return reading, but the person didn't know they were in their Saturn return and they had just chosen to come to an astrologer at that point. So I feel like learned a ton about Saturn returns just by having to talk people through them who are in the middle of it.
What do you find is the common emotion there? Just like chaos, like not knowing?
I think the common emotion actually is expectation, which isn't really an emotion, but it's this. Yeah, it's this feeling of I should be doing more, or I should be doing things differently, or I should it's this very much. I've actually read. I forget even who it was, but I was reading somebody who was talking about Saturn returns as the actual moment when we become adults. And it's not when we turn 18 and it's not when we turn 21. It's actually our Saturn return. Because Saturn is daddy, right? Like Saturn is the ultimate daddy image. Daddy baby. Astrology. And so of course it's when Saturn gets back to the place it was when you were born that you sort of become your own daddy. That
is what it felt like for me. I had, again, like I grew up. It felt, for me, my Saturn return is just like you said, my therapist actually likes to say I became the CEO, Colleen.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a perfect description of just like growing up. Wow. What's the most chaotic, like the craziest story you've read with someone's Saturn return? Like you're like, holy shit, this is a pretty serious Saturn return. Anything sticks out? You remember?
Let me think. I feel like none of these are crazy, but I've had a ton of people that were going back to school, actually. Had a ton of people who actually, plenty of them had already gone to school and had thought that they had found the thing they wanted to do. And then it was in this Saturn return that either they were like, oh, I need more education. This is what I really want to do within this field. Or they changed direction entirely. And we're just like, I think coming to an astrologer because they knew what they really wanted to do, but obviously like there's a lot of fear and doubt in totally breaking a career that you've been building and going in a new direction and having to start over. And so that's been a really cool observation, is like giving people who are not quite in their Saturn return yet, but have it approaching, the like trying to give them freedom and agency to say, well, look, if you want to make a big change, this is it. Like, this is your invitation. Here's all these people who have made big changes. You could do it too.
Wow. So do you have any friends right now going through Saturn return? Anyone?
Yeah, a couple. I actually just did a reading for a friend who's like in the middle of their Saturn return right now. Their Saturn's right at the beginning of Aquarius. So they're getting the start of it. And then like Saturn's retrograde right now and it's heading back toward Capricorn with urgency. So like their Saturn return will take a break and then have to restart again.
I'm laughing so hard because I know so many people are listening right now and are going to message me like, what is this Saturn? That sounds so scary. What is this? What happened? Don't be scared. This is like important stuff for your soul to grow.
Oh yeah, definitely. I even in the midst of all of this sort of came up with this little, I don't know, phrase or like map of what Saturn is supposed to do. So Saturn works in cycles, right? Like, well, everything in astrology works in cycles, but Saturn cycles are really specific because they take about 30 years. And it's arguably the best measure of like life stages that we have in terms of looking at astrology. So the first 30 years of your life, you're an apprentice. you're learning, you're absorbing, you're taking in information, you're experimenting, you're trying out a bunch of different things. And you don't always, but you should have the freedom to do that. By the time you hit 30, which is the end of your Saturn return for most people, you are moving into this place where there's something for you to practice. There's something for you to make your life calling. And that isn't always work or career. There are plenty of people who get married and their marriage is the part of their Saturn return that is like, I'm attaching myself to this person and we're going to go through life together. There are plenty of people who have kids around their Saturn return because that's what they're devoting their life and practice to raising these small little children. So like your practice, you being a practitioner, isn't you finding your career that you're going to do for the next 30 years. It's you finding the thing that you feel called to. And then when you get to the second Saturn return, which no one seems to ever talk about, and it's frustrating, you get more than one Saturn return. So your second Saturn return is somewhere between like 57, 58, 59,
like 60. Yeah.
It's pushing 60. When you get that second Saturn return, now you're moving from this like adult, from this practitioner to an elder, to an ancestor, to a mentor, to somebody who is offering things to those who are younger. And that's like how I view this Saturn return journey, that when you're in that first Saturn return, of course it feels chaotic because you're shifting focus, you're shifting modality, you're shifting the way that your life is supposed to function and the guidelines, the boundaries, all of these Saturn words that you exist in.
Boundaries.
Yeah. We love a good Saturn boundary.
Right? I know. So, well, speaking of which, let's talk boundaries, because what I thought was really cool, Brady, before we got started, which I had already sneaked a peek on their Instagram before, they had said, I like to say, to put this boundary up that my pronouns are they and them, correct?
Yes.
And I thought, okay, cool. I love it. And I'd already known that. I'd seen that. And I said, let's talk about it. I was like, let's talk about it. I like to put everything out there because I know people want to know, like, what age were you when you were like, you know what? I don't want to identify as any certain gender. I am who I am. I'm a soul. When was that?
Yeah. I came out in stages.
All right, cool. Talk stages.
I came out to myself probably around 17 or 18.
Wait, what was that like? Tell it came out.
Well, so like, and this goes back to a little bit of what we were talking about earlier, where like you have to question how you've been like indoctrinated and what you've been assigned. So I think all of us, maybe not kids who are being born today, but most of us who are adults were given a binary language to think about gender. You're a man or you're a woman, and it's defined by your genetics and the things on your body, and that's it. And so that's the only language you have. So really, I think, and I can't speak universally, but from talking to other people and reading other people, I think it's a pretty universal experience for anybody who's gay, lesbian, trans, whatever, to have to come out to yourself first before you can come out to anybody else. You have to come to this place of, oh, this is who I am. I have to understand this is my identity. This is who I really am. And that's okay before you can go be public in it. So like coming out to myself was something that I was in the midst of as I was graduating high school and not really able to quite understand because I still didn't have language.
How did you feel? Did you just feel like you didn't belong either way? Did you not?
Yeah, there was definitely a lack of belonging. And also like as someone who was assigned male at birth and was raised as a boy, there was a big rejection. In a like conservative Christian, very controlled environment. There was a lot, at least early on, of like just outright rejection of masculinity. Like anything that was masculine, I didn't want anything to do with because that part felt painful. And that's like, we're getting into queer theory now, but like part of looking at gender is understanding that at least the most basic way to understand gender is that it's a spectrum and that there is an extreme that we think of as femininity and there's an extreme that we think of as masculinity. And in reality, everybody is somewhere on that spectrum.
Yes,
Um,
110.
and so, like, for me, as someone who is non-binary and falls somewhere in the middle of that spectrum within this analogy, it's really difficult when people see you as the gender that you were given at birth. It's less difficult when people see you as the other gender, because that's a thing that you don't have like pain and trauma responses around.
Okay.
So like, yeah, I mean, initially my relationship with gender was like, I just want to be all the femme things. I just want to really lean into femininity. And I did for a while. I was also like punk at the time. So I was just like, no.
So did you go like extreme into femininity and then sort of like, okay, I experienced that. Let me find like a middle ground.
Yeah. I mean, there was, and there still is to some extent, and probably always will be, like a reaching for the expression that feels right. And that honestly is something that I think everyone should do. Like, whether you're queer or not, whether you care about your gender or not, question the ways that you express yourself, and whether they're genuine and whether they're actually your way to express yourself, or it's something that you think you're supposed to do or that somebody told you you're supposed to do. And that's, I think, really freeing, that you can like play around with the way you express your gender, even if you fully experience your gender as the gender you were given when you were born and you're very secure in that. That doesn't mean that cultural or societal ways of expressing that gender actually align with you. So you get to play with that. And that's what's really fun. So yeah, like very early in me being out to myself, I pushed the feminine parts of myself and I tried to lean into femininity. I think at this point, it's really not about any cultural attachment. It's about finding the thing that is the most comfortable for me. And that just feels better, you know?
Now, growing up, what did the church say? Your parents, your grandparents, what happened there?
I left the church that my parents went to pretty quickly.
After
maybe
you came out or before?
Yeah, pretty quickly. I mean, I was an adult at that point, so it was a little easier to make that decision. But yeah, I mean, there was no place for me there. I have gone back to the school, because I went to a Christian school too. Have gone back to the school once or twice, and it's like there's not really a place for me there either. My relationship with my parents is weird because we all have this tendency to exist in like denial. And I think it's just like shared family trauma where we all just want to deny things instead of facing them. Yeah. So we sort of exist in a state of denial with each other at the moment. But that's better than other people that I know. So like I'm not upset with it because it could have gone much worse, and I know people for whom it has gone much worse.
So you just you still see your family and everything?
Yeah. I still see them. I still love them. I mean, they're great, but it's also like I think you have to come to terms at some point with like family is family by blood, but the concept of family is something that's archetypal. And so the people who I really feel like are my family are not necessarily related to me by blood.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I don't still get family support from them, and then I can get blood support from my blood family. Like that is still a bond, and that exists, and it's genetic and it's there. But the archetype of family support probably exists elsewhere more in my life.
Do you have anyone in your like immediate family, like a sibling, someone who's like, you know, your ride or die, whoever you are?
No, there's relative stages of closeness, but yeah, I don't think there's anyone in my blood family who I'm especially close with.
You know, I'm sorry about that. And it's interesting for people listening. And again, there's probably people who have never heard any of the things that we're talking about right now. Just like,
probably, yeah.
And when I see you, it's like, you're fabulous. You're amazing. You're this soul. And if that's my children's choice one day and everyone else, and I can't wait to hopefully we're moving into a world that just people see that and accept it. And like, you know what I mean? And just be open-minded to much deeper than the appearance, you know?
Definitely. And I think that comes with education and exposure. Yes. You know, like those are the two keys to anything. Is, do people have education that's rooted in empathy, and do people interact with those who aren't like them?
Rooted in empathy. And I know
I know. To me,
Yeah.
I feel like the more different, I'm like, oh yes, where is that person? You know, I like the more authentic,
Definitely.
the better. Now, do you find that people are still very are respectful of the they and them with you, or
Depends on the environment, and it depends on how comfortable I am in the moment. Because there are times where I'm willing to call people out and have that conversation, and then there are times where I don't feel comfortable to do that. So it definitely depends on where I am. But I think the places where I spend the majority of my time are places where they're respected, because I wouldn't spend my time there if otherwise. Like, I love the Prana House because it's a community that has accepted me as me. And I think I would have a much harder time with it if I wasn't, you know? So
now to create empathy for people listening, how does it feel? You said it hurts when someone refers to you as he, you know, or as a painful, so they can listen, because people don't know, and they might be like, oh, why does it matter? It's, oh, I'm getting used to it or whatever. Like, no, that's create empathy. What does it feel like for you?
It's really an issue of respect. And the best analogy that I can think of, and it's bigger than this, but think about like the kid you knew in like third grade whose full name was Jacob. But if you called him Jacob, he would lose his shit and be like, no, my name is Jake.
Yeah.
And if you ever called him Jacob, it was like the worst thing in the world. Like, take that and then magnify it by 1,000 times.
By 10,000.
Basically what the experience is like. It's somebody, and it's one thing to have the assumption made, because like everybody makes assumptions, and I've been assumed all kinds of things. I have gotten he on the street, I've gotten she on the street, I've gotten what the hell are you on the street. So like, that is a different experience than having communicated your pronouns to someone and them continuing
just totally being rude and just ignoring them.
Because that is a lack of respect. That's saying, I don't care about you as much as I care about my own comfort. And so I'm going to choose my comfort in calling you he instead of your comfort. And that's what it comes down to, is like, if you are someone who claims to be empathetic or compassionate or anything else, or loving or spiritual or whatever, then you know that it's respect for other people that is the core doctrine of anything. And that's what this is.
That's exactly, wow. Now, what do you wish you would have told yourself, you know, what someone was there to tell you when you were first, you know, that's usually an end question. We're not done yet, but that question just popped to me in this moment right now.
I honestly, actually, the only thing that I wish for is that like a much younger version of me could have had access to the language that I have now. That's it. Because I really think that I might have a different understanding of my gender experience if I had gotten to play around with it as a kid, instead of trying to fit a box and then only getting to play around with it as an adult. Because as an adult, you're carrying, like, even at 18, you're carrying 18 years of other people's expectations and conditioning, and, you know, you have to unlearn before you can learn. So I wish 5 or 6-year-old Brady could have known that you can do whatever you want and you can express yourself however you want, and gender isn't real. And it's just something that we get to make up and choose. And if I had known that, then I think, I don't know. I don't know what it would have looked like, but I think I would have been a much freer and like less heavy childhood. Than the one that I got.
Do you feel that Philly is, in the areas we live in and go around, is a pretty accepting place? Like, do you feel accepted most places you walk around and comfortable in and out?
More in Philly than Westchester, actually.
Really?
But maybe that's because I spend most of my time in like West or South Philly. So like, they are pretty like weird and open places.
Yeah.
I think the area that we live in, like the Philadelphia area, is, sorry, my computer's freaking out. Okay, we're back. Sorry. The area that we live in, I think, is better than others. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that explicit support and welcoming exists everywhere, but I also don't think that I personally, and maybe this has to do, and now we're going to broaden this conversation, with me being a white queer and not a person of color, but I don't think that I'm directly discriminated against very often because of the way that I dress or express myself or whatever, or identify or what, anything like that. But I do think that there is this like second layer of discrimination that exists that isn't like outright, but
Let's
that is
talk
like
about that.
microaggression. So yeah, like microaggression, right, is this idea of
You have so many terms. I'm gonna have to write. It's good. I need to know all of them.
I spend so much time reading like queer things and reading like social justice things. Yeah, it's all language. But so like microaggressions in a psychology oriented perspective are things that won't be perceived as like outright or explicitly aggressive or harmful, but that still cause harm in the body and in the unconscious. And so it's things like being misgendered. It's things like explicit questions about, actually, I'll broaden the perspective so it's not just me. There's a thing in the trans community that's called your dead name, which is the name that you were given at birth. And many trans people choose to change their name. And so like one major question that always gets asked to trans people is, what was your old name? What was your name before?
Really?
That's a microaggression.
I've never thought to ask a trans person that. That's why I'm like, I've never thought to say, I figured I don't want to talk about it or whatever.
Right.
Like, cat, you know?
Exactly.
Wow.
But there's this weird, and like we could go into the social reasoning for why this exists, but there is this weird, almost strange like glorification of queerness in general and transness in specific that is like people don't understand it, but somehow I think maybe weirdly want to, and so ask a lot of questions that are very insensitive and not like I'm not empathetic, not coming from a place of compassion, that are coming from a place of like, oh well, I want to understand this and you're here on display, so I can ask this.
And I can ask.
And that, yeah, I mean, like, I won't go into the long social history of why that is, but like, DM me on Instagram and we'll talk about it because it's really interesting.
No, that all of that is totally. I still can't believe I've just like never thought to like. Again, I guess that's a great thing. I never thought to ask someone who is this person that they are and everything. Like what before?
Yeah.
What, and you know,
it's an absurd question. It's an absurd question.
What do you think is the most damaging question someone can ask?
What's in your pants? And I've been asked that.
Wow. Just like by strangers?
In public. At Barnes & Noble, actually.
At Barnes & Noble?
Yep, by customer.
You can't see me, my mouth dropped. Wait, what did you say?
I said, no, I mean, I couldn't do that. I was working. I said that it wasn't any of their business. And then I gave them their book and walked away because it was unpleasant.
Where was it an older white male?
I don't even remember who it was at this point. It's definitely a repressed memory, but I remember that experience of like being asked that question and having to like walk away and be like, oh my God, I thought that was just something you read about on the internet.
That's crazy.
Don't do this.
And in a place like Barnes & Noble.
It was Delco. Like, come on now.
I didn't want to say it. You know, I just learned not too long ago, but a client, she was one of my first original interviews and she's from Delco. And I didn't know there was like Delco, Deep Delco. Then there's like Deep Delco. It was like,
oh yeah.
And it's Delco. When I moved here from Pittsburgh, I didn't know what it was. But the minute like people said Delco, I eventually knew what Delco was. And there's just no other way to describe it. Just Delco.
It's a very visceral experience.
Do you still have friends that you grew up with?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a couple friends who still like live down there, and I haven't been in Westchester all that long, so you know, I still see them. But
now I don't know why this question came to me, so I hope it's not a stupid question. Is Aunt Mary Pat trans, or is that just so right? Isn't she from Delco? Or is is she actually trans, or is that someone who just is a character? That I'm not sure.
I don't know how that person identifies. And I don't even know what the right pronouns to use. Like, I know it's she in that context, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I just thought, I used to watch her all the time and thought she was funny with all the Delco impersonations. And then I just never knew if like that was, her or what. That is so funny. So what currently today, right, in the world today, what are your predictions? What do you see, like astrology? Like, what do you think is happening? I want to hear your and why and what.
This could be a whole episode in and of itself, just talking about like what the hell is going on in the sky right now. I hate to say it, but like 2020 isn't going to get any less crazy.
I know.
It's just not. Even if you thought May was wild, June is a more wild month astrologically. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that like more things are going to happen. It might. I don't know. We'll see. But there's 2 eclipses, one of them at 0 Cancer. There's a Venus star point, there's a Mercury retrograde, there's a Mars and Neptune conjunction, there's like, and we can just keep going and going. Like, June is a long month full of a lot of things. And then July is a long month and August is a long, and like it's every month of this year just has at least one, if not multiple kind of major occurrences. So I think almost you can look at this year, and it's really hard for me to remember January because January feels so long ago.
So long.
But even January was like incredibly intense. Lots of tension in the world in general. Like, that's what I think we can continue to expect, is that there will be tension and that there will be opportunities for change. Major opportunities for change, to do things differently, to question why we've done things the way we have in the past, to try and break out. Like, that's what most of this feels like, is it's this like, I don't know if you've ever watched a video of like a bird coming out of a shell, like when it's being born, but it's that moment of like the shell starts cracking and then you can see parts of the bird like sticking up through the shell and then they come back. It's that sort of experience when you look at the rest of 2020, and even what's already happened, is that there's these like peaks and then it comes down a little and then it peaks and then it comes down, and it's just this kind of like repeated stretching almost. But the year ends with this super powerful, it's this winter solstice, and Jupiter and Saturn are conjunct all on the same day.
Oh, we're ready for that, baby. Really?
Yeah. So that's the moment that I'm kind of just waiting for this year to get to. Like, everything that has happened, I'm like, okay, but that's not the real thing. All right, but that's not the real, like, waiting for the thing that happens, which is, I think, going to be in December. And even if we don't experience it in December, whatever the roots of it are going to be laid with that Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, because that's, even if it happens every 20 years, one of the most recognizable and powerful and like most historically documented astrological occurrences.
Is it? Wow.
Yeah. There's supposedly, and you can trace it because we have the technology, at about like, it's 3 or 4 AD. I don't remember what the exact year, but there was a major Jupiter and Saturn conjunction that also involved Venus, I believe. So it was like this huge triple conjunction that was visible from Bethlehem. And so there's this theory that the Star of Bethlehem in like, the Jesus birth story narrative was actually a Jupiter and Saturn conjunction that was being seen, because it talks about like the Magi knew this star was going to appear at this certain time. And you can trace Jupiter and Saturn cycles really easily because it happens every 20 years on the dot, almost perfectly, like almost to the day. So like, that's the assumption, is that the Star of Bethlehem, whether it was really showing Jesus's birth or not, was a real event, and it was a Jupiter and Saturn conjunction.
Wow. How about that? That's amazing. So 2021, I think things are going to start to smooth over a little bit, right? We're all going to start to form.
Yeah. I mean, 2021 slows down a little, but then like it picks back up again. The rest of this decade is huge. So
do you think like
continues.
do you think the whole decade, or I feel like it's going to like the first 4 years are going to be like, I think the second half's going to be much better.
I hope the second half will have Pluto not in Capricorn anymore, and it will be after the United States' Pluto return.
I actually think Trump's going to win again, even though I hate him, just because I think he's such a pivotal point in tearing down America that, like, you know, in like the White House, that I feel like because I know we still have a lot of shit. I feel like that's why.
I have also had that thought that, like, is this lunatic part of the, like, Pluto return of the United States, that no matter what, there are very few countries that have existed that have truly gone through Pluto returns, and the ones that have major transformations at their Pluto returns.
Wow.
So you can almost guarantee the United States will be different after whoever is president for the next 4 years, because the next election cycle will be in the midst of that Pluto shifting into Aquarius in 2024. And that's a whole new ball game. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. Pluto in Capricorn started with the market crash and the that was Pluto into Capricorn. That's exactly what that was.
Wow.
So when Pluto moves into Aquarius,
what do you think will happen then?
Well, I mean, if we look at what happened with Pluto in Capricorn, which was multiple things. So it wasn't just that Capricorn has to do with money and finances and security, but it does. So there was all of that was destroyed, but it was specifically a housing bubble, Capricorn being structure. And then out of that, we saw the government bailing out big business, both government and big business being Capricornian themes. So all of this, like, chaos, all of this initial destruction and then attempt to rebuild something was all about power structures and was all about Capricorn themes. If we take that to Aquarius, Aquarius is community. Aquarius is like the brotherhood and sisterhood, or like unitedness of humanity. Aquarius is technology. So some sort of disruption will be occurring in those realms, whether it's like Pluto coming in and disrupting global relations in a way to, like, tear down the really problematic global relations that we've had forever, but especially recently, and allowing for something new to be built. It could be some sort of technological, like, fall and then rebuild, where maybe we see technology stocks crashed a lot. But I also think, like, Pluto is major change. So not that technology hasn't already been moving at, like, a lightning fast pace, but I would imagine that Pluto moving into Aquarius is just going to advance the amount of change that technology is.
I wonder if we're going to see a lot more robots come through.
Yeah, I think more robots is possible.
People being replaced with robots.
Yeah, like restructuring the way that. So looking backwards, if Pluto is moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius, then we're moving out of an Earth sign, the body, into an air sign, the mind. So we're definitely looking at things shifting to a more mentally oriented, maybe a lot more people, like, working remotely. Maybe that's part of what we could see in Pluto and Aquarius, because there's also this, like, isolation in Aquarius. It's the middle of winter. It's the time when the least amount of people go outside. Maybe not as much anymore, but, like, from the agricultural perspective that astrology was created in, you had nothing to do in Aquarius season, so you stayed inside all the time. So it is a sign of isolation.
It still has that feeling, though, now that you said that.
Definitely.
It sort of has that, absolutely. All right. Well, this has been, we're already to the end of our interview. It's been like, I feel like we're going to definitely for sure have to have another session on here. There's so many things I need to come back and talk to you about, but I want to end it with 3 questions at the very end. And so I kind of asked you one already about your inner child one, your little one. So let's say, what would you say to anyone right now, maybe struggling with someone younger, struggling, or adult, anyone struggling with some sort of identity? Like, who am I? Where am I? Especially if it's one that maybe society doesn't accept yet.
Yeah. I think it starts with questions. Is literally just question everything. Question yourself. Question the things you believe. Question the things that other people tell you. Question the narratives and the stories that you're fed. it's in that questioning, in that introspection, that you can start to discover identity. And it might not be the identity that you think you are at the beginning, but at the end, or maybe there isn't really an end, but on some sort of other side, there is an identity that will feel more comfortable, more you, more genuine. And that really, at least in my experience, only comes by questioning everything.
Wow, that's beautiful. Beautifully put. I love that. Now, what is the best through your life? What's the best piece of advice anyone's ever given you?
I knew this question was coming, and this is the one that I thought about.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I had to, because I couldn't think of anything on the spot when I heard you. I listened to Nikki's interview.
Okay, good. I'm like, good. You back to you listen to it. Good.
Yeah, I did. I love Nikki. She's great.
I love her.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Best piece of advice anyone has ever given me. Believe in yourself. Honestly, like, believe in yourself, and also believe yourself. Believe your perspective, believe your feelings, believe you over anything else, because you know your body, you know your experience.
Wow. See, that's perfect. So it's good. It's good. I like to ask randomly so people give it, but you did a good job thinking. Now, then you already know what's coming to my last question is, what piece of advice do you want to leave for our listening audience today?
Yeah. I should have thought about this one more clearly. I think the piece of advice that I would want to leave people, or maybe like a parting word, I guess, is going to be listen to other people as well. And I know that the last thing that I just said was like, believe yourself and listen to yourself, but also listen to other voices. And especially listen to people who are different than you. Like, if you know your identities, if you know the ways that you fit into the world, go find people who fit into the world differently and listen to what they have to say.
Yes.
And that's the best piece of advice that I could give anybody else.
That's huge.
Listen to other people.
That's huge. I say that for people listening to this podcast. I mean, I have so many points to this podcast, but one of them is to bring so many different worlds to people and to show, I say, pick someone on on one of my episodes that you normally wouldn't listen to because you don't think you have anything in common, and you might be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The
Definitely.
same feelings, same narratives in a lot of ways, same stories. Now, Brady, this has been an amazing interview. So tell everyone where they can find you, they can reach out to you, if they want a reading from you. Tell us everything.
Yeah, so I'm all over the place. Online, on Instagram, I'm The Mythic Landscape, because I'm a Sagittarius and like to do weird things with my names. That's also the name of my website, so you can find me there, and you can book me online no matter where you are, for like a Zoom call or for like a recorded reading. And then if you're in the Westchester and or Philadelphia area, I offer readings at the Prana House, which of course currently are also remotely, but at some point will be in person again. That's in Westchester. And then I also offer readings in West Philadelphia at a hair studio called Transfiguration, which is just a really awesome place on Baltimore Ave. And I hope to be back there soon as well.
That is awesome. When does the Prana House open?
The shop should be reopening in the beginning of June with social distancing measures in place. The Wellness Center still doesn't have a date yet. But we'll see how this global pandemic plays out, and maybe summer or early fall.
Gosh, hopefully summer. I know. Well, thank
right.
you. And thank you everyone for listening. If you have a message, question, or anything, or you feel that you have a story that you want to bring to the Hair Healer Podcast, please reach out to me, the Hair Healer Podcast at yahoo.com. Please find me on Instagram at the Hair Healer 1111. And please rate, review, share this with someone. I know this was an amazing episode. I know this could help a lot of people. So please share this with anyone you think it could help. Thank you everyone again for tuning in every week. I appreciate and love you guys. Thank you again, Brady, for bringing an awesome interview. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you. Goodbye.